We made it.
Hopefully our dumb music was working.
You need to stick us back on split screen.
Yep, I just realized that it's just me.
Kara was getting all excited, like, things will
What the
be
heck?
perfect for me.
Oh, there we go. Right? Did
Yep.
it go back?
No, we're split.
Okay. For some, oh, there we go. Okay.
No, or you touched it again. I'm not sure. No, I don't know.
No, it was properly on split screen, and now it's gone back, and then it went back, and then now it's back. What in the absolute heck?
Hi, Dee Marie.
Gallery, right? Isn't gallery the one we
I
want?
believe so. Yep. Yay.
Okay, there we go.
Today
Stinking Zoom.
and today will be anything but simple. Anything but simple. All right. We had a few minutes that we were a little rough, but it looks like everybody's found us now. It took a minute. It took a minute. Hi, Janet. So we are starting our new book tonight. It is also rumored that there will be an Ann Hermes joining us in the chat. So pay attention for that. I haven't gotten any notices or anything that anybody's, blowing up anywhere. So, tonight we're discussing intro through chapter 2. Next reading will be August 6th, Tuesday, August 6th. We're going to do chapters 3 and 4, which are pages 33 through 77. Don't panic. It's 90% pictures.
Yeah, I got worried because I was like, when I went to do my reading, I'm like, oh no, we have to read chapter 3 too. And I was like, oh my God, chapter 3 is like 1,000,000 pages.
Yeah, it's like all pictures. And then also we have some pictures to share tonight. Arlene shared some in the Quilt Nerding Facebook group, but in case you're not in there, she sent them to me so that we can share them because she has one of the quilts from the book. One of the
Oh, one of the pillowcases.
that she
Yes,
bought from Anne
that's
when Anne
right.
was liquidating.
She bought it directly from Anne, so that's
Yep.
awesome.
She also has another one that she is wondering about now that she's read certain portions of the book. And then I have pictures of something to share as well. Other announcements. Tomorrow is Needlework Nights at 7 p.m. We're doing advertising thimbles. Steph has a gajillion of them. So we're looking at those. And other important things at this moment, unless you want to announce our next book.
Yeah, so we try to stay ahead so that, give people plenty of time to buy books if they need to save up for them, need to find them, whatever. And we have decided the next one is going to be by a pretty famous person who has also agreed to come and do an interview. And it will be Soft Covers for Hard Times by our friend Merikay Waldvogel. I'm very excited. This is a book I have read. And actually, this is a book I have read. But yeah, we're so excited. And I think we both have an affinity, right, for Depression era stuff. I mean, some of it is like cute and charming. Some of the stories are really heartbreaking but interesting. So yeah, we want to dive into that. And she graciously agreed to drop in and do an interview with us. And she said she'd have to look and see if she has any signed copies because the book did come out a while ago and it's out of print. So she said she'll keep us posted, but if she can't find any, you guys know it's on Abe, it's on Amazon, it's on
There'll be
eBay.
links.
So.
I'll put links out.
Yeah, we'll have all that for you.
Yeah,
so
affiliate links that help us pay for things, but also just reminded me of another announcement. Our interview with Anne, and when we finish this book, is going to be, I'm actually just writing it down here for the chat. It's going to be Tuesday, August 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you have any questions while you're reading the book that you want to ask ahead of time, you can send those over to us in the 800 places that you can send us stuff. People find a way. And and we can pass those on to her beforehand. Also, people will notice in terms of books that the Quilt Nerding Instagram, they do also have to go up on Facebook. The Quilt Nerding Instagram made a post the other day of extra books that Stephanie and I end up with because of very good friends like Merikay Waldvogel, you know, give us extra books that they have. And they're taking up a lot of space. I here have like 40. And they're being sold off very affordably. And what that sale does for us is it helps support, you know, things that we do, places we go, experimental things that we buy, stuff like that. And it's just a great way to help support us. And I put 10 up the other day and 2 of them have already sold. So if there's,
and we might also be able to do some giveaways this way because it'll give us a little bit of slush fund to do shipping and stuff like that. So yeah, we've got all sorts of things in mind. So there's a method to our madness, and hopefully maybe you can add some books to your collection.
Yes, but definitely ones that you've been waiting for. So keep an eye on those because I am loading them up in like batches of 10. And then the ones that Steph has on her property, she'll do separately just so that we don't get a shipping conundrum going with people that are buying from both places. So, okay. Are we ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, let me share my screen because I just want to pop something up real quick. While we're, come on, Zoom. Too many screens.
Yeah, you should see what it looks like over here when I co-stream with both of us. It's insane. I got to get a new monitor, another monitor, not a new one, an extra one.
All right, are we seeing this?
Yes, the great state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so I liked that this was right in the book in the front there. That's showing us exactly what we're talking about, because and it's funny, when Steph and I were recently at the Penn Dry Goods Market, I had been talking about how interesting it is that Pennsylvania, when people are talking about things in Pennsylvania, history in Pennsylvania, even just traveling through Pennsylvania, they often refer to all their areas by counties and not necessarily towns. And while up here in Massachusetts, we certainly have counties, and there are various reasons that you might mention a county. In general, we don't discuss things broadly as counties. We discuss them as towns. So every time people kept saying, you know, these places, I don't know where they're talking about, other than roughly like Lancaster County, because I just have spent time there. So I found this little map extremely helpful, and the little caption next to it is map of Pennsylvania counties, highlighting the southeastern corner where patchwork pillowcases are found. So I thought that would just be for anyone that's not potentially following along in the book in real time, so they can just realize where we're talking about here. I will stop sharing for the moment because the other stuff we'll talk about later.
Yeah, thanks, because I still can't, like, but with the way when we're sharing, I still can't get these views to be right. I think it's
Can you put us back on gallery, sweetheart?
Yeah, I did. I think the challenge is when you're sharing, it's the way we share, whether you share your screen and keep our pictures up, or whether you
we won't bore people with the tech.
Yeah, we still got to figure that out. So sorry, guys. I know it's irritating when one of us is talking, but you're only seeing the other one of us. That's irritating. We'll get it to work sometime eventually. Yes, you know, and I feel like Pennsylvania is one of those states, much like New York, that it's a giant state, yet people tend to only really know about like one little portion of it. Like when you say New York to people, people are like, oh, New York City, right? Because that's the part that's like everybody knows. There's so much more, right? And that Pennsylvania is the same way. And people think about Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is very close to this area. You know, this Berks Bucks? I can't remember what are the other ones. Lebanon, Berks Bucks, Montgomery, Lancaster, Chester. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, but so much happened there, right?
I can't even. I can't even fathom even like investigating other parts of the state because like you said, it's massive. Um just as an update, Ann's having a little trouble with her chat function.
Oh,
So I'm just gonna tell her that she can just message me here and I can read things for her.
cool.
So
I'm
yeah,
glad you're here though, Anne. It's so good to hear that you're near.
yeah. And if it's easier, you can always just send messages to my phone and I'm happy to read them out to the group. So yes, I didn't realize too that you had already read this book. I knew you had this book, but I didn't know you had read this book. So I am a complete noob here with this book, which I must say is already extremely enlightening.
It is so interesting. Yeah, when I got the book, it's funny, somebody had recommended it to me, and I had bought it right before I met Anne last year. And when we met, where I think you had told me that you'd mentioned her name and told us that she was a friend that you'd met and that she knew Dawn and et cetera, et cetera. And I can't remember what you said, something about the book, and I was like, oh my God, I just bought that book. It's so crazy, like small world. But yeah, I had never heard of these pillowcases, and I just was so fascinated, by this rare, interesting thing, you know. And it's really, this area is not that far from me.
No,
It's just an hour or two, depending on which, whether the area that's closer to my end or farther away on the shore, the eastern coast of Pennsylvania.
hi
Um,
Jan.
hey Jan.
Yes. So
Yeah, so
I've seen, well, in looking like in online auctions and things like that, I feel like I've seen some patchwork pillowcases here and there. Some definitely like modern. Potentially, I don't know, maybe reproductions of these particularly, but I didn't know beforehand that this was really kind of just like a Pennsylvania Dutch kind of thing.
mhm.
Um Arlene, I'll put the books on Facebook too. Don't worry. So that was very interesting. And also the fact too, as we get in and right in the beginning here, where we kind of talk about how the Amish didn't really make these.
Right, I
It's like
know.
everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. It seems to me like, and I could be way off, and I'm trying to remember kind of what some of the theories that might be in here throughout the book. But I'm kind of thinking like it feels like it's probably like one little community of Pennsylvania Dutch people that maybe had this sort of in their history, or that, and like they all kind of did it, and then it went out a little bit, right? But not like a whole lot. And it did not, I mean, I was really interested. I was like, oh, it didn't touch the Amish. It didn't touch the English Quakers.
Hmm.
Like none of them did this. It was specifically the Pennsylvania Dutch. And yeah, I did this before I keep rambling. This page, these pillowcases on page 12,
Hmm.
those colors are so Pennsylvania Dutch. Like we've spent a little bit of time with our friends in Pennsylvania who are absolute gurus. One of them is named in the acknowledgments in this book, by the way. And we're very used to looking at these colors. Like these are just standard colors in the Pennsylvania Dutch, color wheel. If any of you were around when I read Ruth Finley's book way back on my stream, I mean, it's been probably going on a year ago.
Are those on your backlog on YouTube yet?
I don't think they are. They're rough. I haven't decided if I'm going to put them up or not. But if you have Ruth Finley's book, or you've ever read it, there is a part in the very beginning where she's talking about, I can't remember why she's talking about Pennsylvania Dutch, but she basically says Pennsylvania Dutch use colors so bright and garish that they would put a blind man's teeth on edge.
Oh my goodness.
And this is what she's talking about. That like orangey and the pink and the yellow and the green, like she cites these colors. And so every time I see something like this, I love it. I love the pink and the yellow and that cheddary orange. And I mean,
Oh, Anne finally figured out a chat and she said, I made it.
Hey. But yeah, I love this so much. But it's like, if you looked up, what is the Pennsylvania Dutch color scheme? This would be in the dictionary.
It's almost, you'd almost think that they had their own, textile mill and like just
Yeah.
kept producing like the same ones. I will say, like, once you really learn how to recognize those typical Pennsylvania colors, you can't unknow them after that.
Garish, I think not. Me neither. I think they're beautiful. I don't think of it as garish. And I trash talked Ruth Findlay up one side and down the other. Like, how dare she? Because I think they're wonderful. Now, from a technical standpoint, from a purely technical, practical standpoint, how did you not have like seam lines on your face if you used these? Now, I recognize many of them were just for pretty, but the ones that got used, can you imagine waking up
No,
with
I
like
agree. I don't picture
a
them being
faint
super comfortable.
star outfit on your face?
That was that like a temporary tattoo at the time? It's funny, just because you just mentioned about Ruth Findlay mentioning that in her book, just as a quick shout out here, that in the very back of the book is a really phenomenal annotated bibliography. And these things, along with Anne's endnotes, they're very detailed. You can tell Anne's a scientist. But I always make sure to look at that stuff, the bibliography, because there's some really great other publications in here that she's using and referencing. Oh, and look, we have a Barb Garrett in the chat. Hi, Barb.
Hey, Barb. I'm glad you made it.
Oh, and she said those colors are in every medium in Germany. It's
Well,
funny.
yeah. When I think about like, the kind of the folk art kind of stuff, I guess that's the right word for German stuff. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think people probably think about like the German Christmas stuff, but lots of bright colors and just ornamentation. And, they always talk about the Pennsylvania Dutch. They love to decorate everything. And it's like, yeah, who doesn't? People that like minimalism. I don't understand those people. Lots of respect. I'm not going to trash talk you, but I don't understand minimalism because, yeah, it's just not in my blood. So I actually have a quick question for Anne. On page 7, and I think this pillowcase shows up a couple of times you're talking about it because it's the one that's 1816. That thing's old. Was the AH, did that particularly catch your eye because those are your initials?
Oh my God, I didn't even put that together.
I wonder. Well, and technically, I guess so that's your, I think that's your maiden name. You use that name professionally too, because I think your husband and your kid's last name is different. But yeah, I kind of wondered, is that Ann Hermes? 1816?
Darn, and I was just looking here. I was hoping it was part of her collection, but it's not. It's another collection.
Oh. Yes, I tried to claim it, but it was denied. Yeah, I remember as I was looking through here, this one does belong to the Hers. And I'm wondering, I'm thinking that is it Patricia Her? I know I looked at your Trish Her, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's Doctor.
Yeah, and I'm flipping through the bibliography again, not to derail from the pillowcases, but I'm like, this is a who's who of people that I know recently and or have read and or know things about. So Bobby Ogg, I mean, this quilt used to belong to her and it's very Pennsylvania Dutchy. And Bob Bishop, if you haven't seen my stream from the other day, you got to catch it because poor Bob Bishop, he was fooled by this quilt. Hazel Carter, saw her not long ago. Candace Perry, saw her not long ago. So yeah, I love this. Like, we hang out with lots of Pennsylvania people, so.
Oh, and Anne said that things are probably now somewhere else because collections went to auction.
Yeah, you wrote this book in 2014, I think. Yeah, 2014. Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. People's collections, they move them around. People offer you money, you buy them. And
well, everybody that's listening, if you happen to come across that particular pillowcase, full picture on page 23, it's the one on the bottom, the Ohio Star, and it has the AH. We have to keep an eye out for it, or maybe you find another one because they've got Ann's initials. Okay, so it's a collective effort.
So you're looking for the AH pillowcase made in 1816, and you're looking for the J Caps trade blankets for me. But you know, that's the thing though. I'm finding this week, you put it out there, people will find it for you.
Oh, I know. People are finding you things, and you were like, I wasn't even really asking for them, but here they are.
And there's yes, I'm like, I gotta have them too.
Yeah.
The hers have both passed away. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they related to the potato chip people?
Who are the
Sorry.
potato chip people?
Hers potato chips.
I don't know.
Her
I don't think I have-
HERR. It's a common name. I mean, it's a pretty common name in Pennsylvania, I think. I would guess.
Say,
I
I
mean,
don't think we have those chips up here. At least if we do, I don't think they're like mainstream.
yeah, they're a regional chip. A regional chip.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, okay.
All right.
So moving on.
Mhm.
So it's funny, one of these, I gotta say, for one, and this section on Patchwork Pillowcase frequently asked questions is just mwah.
Yeah,
Like,
I love it.
oh,
Like,
the
yeah.
simple answer part is just
Mhm.
fabulous.
Yes, and you know, this is a Schiffer book, right?
Yep.
Schiffer, and I don't know if that was your decision to frame it that way, or if you had an editor that suggested that, but yes, brilliant decision, because you know, the reason why we do this book club and I do the reading on my stream is because we have so many books and we all agree. We look at them, we look at the pictures, we say, I'm going to read this, it's going to go on my bedside table, and then we never do. So that said, books with this kind of like, here's the skinny, you know, if you don't have time to dive into it the minute you pick it up, you could at least get the gist of it with this first chapter, and then you're like, you can't put the book down.
And
So
then it was Anne's decision too.
we probably should save some of these questions for your interview. Yeah, I think that was such a great decision.
Yeah, I don't know that I really knew any of this stuff. Like, just example here for anyone not actually following along. The very first question here, what is a patchwork pillowcase? Simple answer. A patchwork pillowcase is a removable covering for a bed pillow, generally rectangular in shape, made from pieced or appliqued patchwork. I would not have automatically assumed applique would have fallen into that category, just based on people calling them patchwork pillowcases, and we will look in detail in photos. But I very recently purchased, it was last year, what is claiming to be an applique pillowcase here that's framed. Again, I took some pictures.
There's some glare on that.
Yeah, sorry, there's a glare because it's got glass. There is some speculation potentially that it could be a privy bag.
Which I think is addressed in a later chapter, right? Hanging bags and
no, I don't even know. I haven't looked. I haven't read ahead.
I'm sorry. This is right, because I have read this book. Yes, I believe that those are covered in a later chapter.
I was gonna say I haven't read nothing ahead, but
my bad.
I did some of the applique reminds me of some of the pictures that that were already in here. Let me see what particular page I was thinking of. I have been asked to take it out of the frame. It does also have a piece of paper with it that claims that claims it is a Mennonite pillowcase. I have been asked to take it out of the frame to investigate, which I'm not saying that I won't do, but the thing that makes me nervous is just like getting it back in the frame.
Yeah, when things are professionally framed, it's like, oh, because it's got that nice brown paper on the back and stuff. Like you can't necessarily like, it's kind of like trying to put toothpaste back in a tube once you open something like that. It's difficult.
Yeah. I was recently in Pennsylvania when Steph and I went to the Penn Dry Goods Market. After the market, I went down to another area about an hour and a half away in York to do some shopping, and came across a pillowcase that I had asked Ann about, and what, because for one, I was thinking, was this yours? It was potentially something I was going to get, but that particular store that I was shopping, it was actually kind of a nightmare that day. So I did not end up getting it. I might still have a picture of it in my phone, but otherwise I don't see these around often. And potentially, I guess if I am seeing them, I could be either myself thinking they're a doll quilt, or whoever's showing them, like an auction house or something, might also be calling them something wrong. But I'm wondering, because
As they do.
Anne mentions a few times in here that the pillowcases are pretty rare, and I think she says, if like the 19th century has thousands of quilts, then the pillowcases are only in the hundreds. And half of me is like, Anne, have you seen all hundreds of them?
Well, I mean, in the very beginning here, she referenced that, let's see, in 1969, Lillian Baker Carlisle described a collection of 50 that she had examined. And then in 79, Patricia Long reported on a study of 55 cases and an additional 50. So like there's either 100 or 150 cases out there that these two ladies looked at. I kind of wonder, I'm like, were any of them the same pillowcases? Like, probably would be my guess. Yeah, I think it's just so interesting to me. Like, this is just a thing that, why didn't everybody do it? Or, I mean, I think we've figured out, like, this particular group, they love to decorate. So this is a decorative thing. It's nothing that has to be made. But I just really wonder, because I think about people that, I mean, even recently, people, some of the folks that are on our Facebook group I'm in, and the one woman was like, oh, I accidentally made like 30 extra blocks. I just, and they were small blocks, but she was like, I just kept going and didn't realize, what should I do with them? And I'm thinking to myself, make a patchwork pillowcase. So, I kind of think, like, I realized fabric was at a premium. They may, people may not have always had enough to do this kind of thing, but it just surprises me that there aren't more of them. And particularly if they were primarily using them as as Barb says, just for pretty, just for nice. Like, you're gonna put them out when you have company to show, right? Janet says, I would think that adding length to the quilt for fold over would be just as easy.
It's funny,
but then you have to have also batting and more binding. But yeah, it kind of
they
is.
bought a particular amount of backing. But so one of the ones I'm thinking about that was recently in auction, I feel like, but if I'm misremembering with that, when we went to the quilt turning at Penn's with the Christs, didn't they have a quilt with a pillowcase? I'm pretty sure that they did.
Barb, do you remember, because you were there, you were at that one, weren't you? Yes, Barb was there. I'm trying to think. I think maybe they did.
Yeah, I think they did. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because,
and it's the Christs, by the way.
Christs? Oh, did I say right? Yeah. There are matching sets that we're playing project. So, and that's what I was going to ask you, is like, we have all these pillowcases here, but like, do we know if oh, they have one here, the Christs have one in your book. I wonder if it's the same one.
Yeah, I know the Christs were definitely referenced in the acknowledgments. So
I know they were knowledge. I just didn't know if they had that particular one, because I thought he had said he got it pretty recently. So but again, I know
they are definitely, I mean, they're based in Pennsylvania, aren't they? I think, but they also spend a lot of time in like Ohio, and so it wouldn't surprise me if they have multiple ones, over the years that they've picked up.
Well, the reason I was asking is, and if in general, should we assume that, page 97, should we assume that all of these pillowcases are supposed to have gone with a matching quilt and they're just, not anymore? Or is there a potential where they would have been made to go with, like white work or even something even more simpler than that? Because I'm just, oh yeah, the one on page 97 is the one I'm thinking about. They
Is
brought
it?
that. Yeah, that's the one I'm pretty sure they brought to Pens.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm like, does that look familiar? Did I take a picture of that? Like, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I'm pretty sure it's that because it was a wow factor.
Mhm.
And Anne said not necessarily. Yeah, that's what I was wondering because at least so far, other than obviously when you get, on a 97 here and you've got a quilt with the pillowcase, um, I wasn't sure. And
Trish,
Barb's, go ahead.
Trish Her used to say a well-dressed bed had a quilt with two coordinating pillowcases. I love that.
Well,
A
and
well-dressed bed.
what's funny is like obviously in like the 90s, it was all the rage to
Pillow
have
shams,
matching
pillow
shams.
shams. Yeah.
So, and then I have these ones that I recently purchased, which I mean obviously like these aren't old. I'm gonna assume these probably went with like a kit quilt,
Mhm.
and have since just
Or were the
separated.
kit itself.
They could have
Not
been, but
maybe
I
not
have,
those particularly, but I have seen there is a Paragon kit. I think it's from the 80s though. That's like that, but it is square pillows like to
okay.
make.
Well,
Hmm.
but I mean, you see the ones, rose, this, whatever, that have like matching shams.
Hmm.
So like, um, it has been all
Well,
the
I
rage.
I think it's something we just take for granted today, home deck. And I'm thinking it's probably, and you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong or you don't agree with me, but I think about the post-war years, like the 1950s, and this would be, my parents. I think your parents are probably a little bit younger, but um, there was this prosperity and people like wanted beautiful houses and, all this, the baby boom, all that stuff's happening. And you like decorator stuff also pops up and it's more tailored than it was before the war, right? And so, women were making stuff still, I guess, but they also were going to like J.C. Penney's and buying a bedspread with matching pillowcases, shams and that kind of stuff. And I think that's what we've come to expect is just like is the norm. And so I guess when I look at this stuff and I'm going, oh, there was only like a few of these, like these weren't common, like nobody had pillowcases and shams, you know. It's just like through our modern lens for me it's the modern lens that makes this so like what, really, wow.
Well, I wonder if part of that is in order to have pillow shams and just for pretty, you have to have more pillows.
Yeah, I have to have pillows, right? Yeah, they're not used daily. Yeah, so did they just flip the pillow over when they went to bed or a pillowcase? um yeah, my guess is either they took them off or they had pillows that were like probably maybe the special pillows. I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. If you were poor, maybe you didn't have pillows. I don't know.
And Anne said she thinks they weren't used on a daily basis just for show. Yeah, because I feel
Hmm.
like it's mentioned in here that the majority of ones you're really looking at aren't ones with much wear or heavy
Hmm.
wear. And that would obviously lend itself to not
And
heavy
there's
use.
also the one, I think it's only referenced here in the beginning, but it's shown and talked about more later in the book, are the ones that it's not really even a pillowcase. It's just a thing that you lay over the pillows.
Yeah, that actually, I was really surprised. I even
Mhm.
kind of, I'm sitting here reading, and I'm like, what? Well,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons that I went like, huh, is because I bought recently some vintage white work pillowcases. And the reason I bought them were to put on the bed when I'm doing quilt photos, just to have a little something something there. And they're too big for our standard size pillows. So I'm like, oh, okay, so it's gonna be a king size pillow. So I get the king size pillow. That's too poofy. And it started pulling out some stitching. So I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And half of me thought, I wondered if I could just pin this to the outside of the pillow and
Hmm.
and would that work? Um, and Janet said people are making quilts that just cover the bottom of the bed. Um,
So like, yes, it's like
a bed scarf, isn't it?
yeah,
Bed
yeah,
scarf?
yeah. Um yes, people made things like that. And I wonder how often the things like that people are like, what is this? It's too small to go
Mhm.
on the bed. So if more, because I think that Anne said in here there was only one of those that she documented that was like lay it
Mhm.
on the pillows.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if maybe there were I mean, it still sounds like there were not like zillions of them made, but I'm wondering if maybe that those are even more lost to time because it's not obvious what they are.
Or I
Or
would
people
think
just
most
think
people
it's
would
like
think that they're crib quilts.
either that, well, but I mean, you think about if it's individual pieces, then yeah, maybe it's a crib or a dog quilt. But if it's like a long bolster like thing, but it's
Mhm.
made to lay over two pillows, and I can't remember. I didn't jump forward and look to see. I can't remember what the details about the one that's in the book are, but I could see somebody like an auction or somebody cleaning out a house or going like, what is this thing? Like, it's so weird. Like, what is it? It's not a quilt, but it's finished. Or, I'm assuming they would have finished the edges or the back of it, whatever. So I'm wondering if that kind of thing happened to these, even though they're rare, they're even
Mhm.
more rare because people just didn't understand what they were. I mean, Anne herself, right in the beginning, says, "I thought that these were doll quilts," and
Yep.
then found out, no, it's a pillowcase.
Yep.
Um,
I'm as my brain is turning here, I am writing down questions I have for Anne later.
yeah, we can't blow all the questions today.
Barb says
Um,
I have a pieced bolster pillowcase that you would put the bolster in, not lay it on.
okay, so then that would have had a back. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So not to change the subject, but I wanted to jump to page 13. I think this is really interesting, and let me just hold it up real quick. So just for reference, you can see this pillowcase, the blocks themselves are a little bit longer and wrap around to the back,
Mhm.
whereas this pillowcase, the blocks are a little smaller, so the backing fabric wraps around to the front, or it might have just been separate, but I think it wraps around to the front. In any event, I thought that was interesting because that's like, is this an attempt to make it fit the pillow better? Is this based on just the fact that maybe that extra piece of fabric on the back was all they had? I mean, I think there's a million different kind of conjectures you can make about this. Um, I suspect it's probably about making it fit the pillow, probably.
Mhm.
But that's just interesting. Like, you know, you have these blocks and you're gonna make this pillowcase, and it's gonna turn out and you're gonna work it out, but it might not be exact.
Well, I mean, in the case of the issue with my king size,
Hmm.
I bought a cheap pillow, not one
Yeah.
I'd ever put my head on, polyfill, but it's too poofy.
Hmm.
And half of me wondered, should I just like put a different backing on this thing just so I can like get the pillowcase in there? Um, so Anne also said think about the side view of the pillow.
Yes, and that is something that kind of nibbled at my brain as I was reading. I'll be honest, I did my reading today. Um, but there is somewhere in here, I think it's probably where she talks about the edging, there was yeah, I'm flipping through where to go. So there's crocheted edging, there's ruffles, there's the little prairie points. I don't know if that's what they called them then or in Pennsylvania, but that's what I grew up knowing them as, but it's the little folded little triangle.
She's calling them
Um,
fabric points.
fabric points, yeah. Just a regular binding like on a quilt, the scalloped edges, which I guess would have had been faced or had a lining, all of this different stuff. Um, and then I thought to myself, well, I think she might have mentioned piping. Yes, contrasting piping. And the thickness of a cushion, like, yeah, that is something that that it you'd see.
Yeah, I wonder too the difference for sure about thickness
Mhm.
because the things that who we might be making a throw pillow out of now, because these are technically for us today. If we're making these today, these are not pillows you're using.
Right. There's
So
something decorative
it's a
for the
throw.
couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So half of me just wonders, like the pillow I'm talking about that I bought is very poofy, but when I think more about the pillows that were used in throws, you know, with like the JC Penney quilt ensembles that you would have gotten in the 90s,
Yeah.
those were much thinner. And then
Mhm.
here in these, I'm wondering, you know, potentially like and by all means tell us if you do know the answer, or Barb,
Yeah.
like what kind of thickness are we talking about at this time? Because you know, obviously we're not talking about polyfill,
Right. Would it have been
like goose down.
goose, yeah, would it have been feathers? I, you know, I mean, without knowing anything else, that's my guess. But also, I mean, I know my grandmother growing up very poor. I mean, this is early 20th century, but they stuffed their mattresses with whatever they had. So, you know, I think it's entirely possible to say pillows, maybe. I mean, I would think you want your pillow stuff with something softer. But
Well,
yeah,
so
Anna's
Anne
saying
says
feathers.
feathers,
Feathers,
which it's funny,
the size
you
of the
know, so if
goose.
we're dealing with feather pillows, you know, now you're dealing with when it sits, you got the pillow sag, because like feathers aren't going to keep that like taut shape.
Poof.
Yeah, so like this one that you're talking about here on 13 that has that kind of extra fabric on it, like Anne had said, like think about how the pillow sits from the side, like also think of like how it's like sitting on its butt, you know, and how that's gonna like
Mm-hmm.
you know,
What
roll
that
out
looks
and
like.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
so I'm
that looks
almost
like.
feeling like some of this extra fabric almost gives it like a butt seat to like floof down a little bit. Are there, Ian, are there cases that you found in your research where like the original pillow might still be with the case and you actually like see, and again, if you pictured it, I'm sorry, I purposely am trying not to like read ahead. Stephanie doesn't adhere to those rules, she's bad, but I try to adhere to them. But I just think that would be very interesting to really see kind of how they could have been sitting. And I know maybe people might, there's those people who put their throw pillows literally like lay it on top of their pillow, and then there's the other people who face it up,
Mm-hmm.
you
There's the
know.
people that do the chop.
Yeah, the chop.
Something tells me they didn't do the chop back then.
I feel like
um,
that's a newer thing, because keep in mind we don't even do shams now like we did in the 90s. We're just like whole throw pillows now instead of like changing out the sham.
and haven't you seen the movies where, you know, there's always that little trope of like the pillows are like halfway down the bed and they're, you know, somebody's like getting rid of them, and then I can't remember, there's some movie where they stab the pillows, and like it's ridiculous. I like your bed pillows, the ones you put your head on, and then if you got something fancy that people are going to see, it's nice then to have that shammed pillow that you put in front of it. um
So moving on to stabbing pillows.
yeah.
I this in the finishing part here about the lining.
Hmm.
Right
Yeah,
at the
that's what I
beginning.
wanted to talk about next. Yeah.
Oh, well, didn't you just read my mind then? The very beginning here, it says an applique case does not need lining because there's no raw fabric edges inside to hide. The
Mhm.
one here that I have that's framed, at least from where the edge would be, does look like there is a lining despite it being applique. The only thing I don't know, obviously, is that lining, because there's like a thick like finished edge type thing. I don't know. Is that too much glare to see up here?
Tilt it just a little bit,
Which
like
way?
tilt like back towards yourself. I think it.
Is that
No, that
helpful?
didn't. No, that didn't help. That just gets that lamp in there.
What about that?
That's a little better, I guess.
Like there's like a thickness up here.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh, I see. It's almost like an edge or something. Is it
like
like
a
turned
like a yeah,
over
like a
or?
band. So I
Mhm.
don't know. I do have, I'm pretty sure I got a picture that shows just a smidge of the lining, which I'll pop up very soon here. Um, I don't know if the lining is just on that band or if it goes all the way in. You could line an
Mhm.
applique case and of course cover the side seams. Um, Yeah, that would just be another reason, another argument for like taking it out of the frame. But I'm just like, oh, I wish I could take it through the glass side. I mean, what did you have? What were your feelings here about linings?
Well, I mean, it makes sense to me that, if it's just going on a pillow, it's not the line, the raw edges are not right in your face, and especially if these are used just to and a spear brush will remove the
So
frame.
wait, let me just ask, just because we're on the subject, Anne, have you seen that before? It came from Columbia, Pennsylvania, is where I bought it, one of the stores out there. I was just curious if you had ever seen it or if this one's kind of a new one to you. Because potentially, I guess that would be a favor, in terms of like removing it if Anne has never seen it. Oh, you
What?
have seen it. Why do I have to remove the frame then? Can't you just tell me about it?
Well, because she's possibly seen it only in the frame.
Oh no.
Um, so as far as linings, it makes sense to me, like if this is like, this is just for show, this is just for, looks, and nobody's gonna sleep on these, nobody's gonna mess them up. I could see why you wouldn't waste extra fabric on lining.
Yeah.
But also I could see where you would use some extra fabric you might have that maybe is not suitable for the front of a quilt or whatever, or even a quilt backing, which this was fascinating to me, this indigo resist dye. And if I remember correctly, like that's so blue and white resist dyed homespun linen was frequently made into bedding. But I mean, that's like really old stuff, right? Those are things that probably like were worn out. So there's potentially not as much of that stuff. So it's cool then to find something that, they had just used that maybe is not, there's not a lot of it around, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like when I think about like foundation pieced quilts, and I was looking at that little silk string pieced quilt I have, and where the silk shatters, you can see the foundation fabric, and sometimes you get surprises. Like mine, of course, is nothing. They're, I'm sure, 20th century fabrics, but this, so like, you pick up a pillowcase and you say, oh, this is great, this is neat, and look what's inside. I mean, it's kind of that same excitement of like, there's this hidden gem in there. I think that's really cool.
One of the reasons I had specifically asked if we're generally talking about pillowcases that are meant to go with quilts is for things like this set of pillowcases here.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see that quilt if that goes with something.
Yeah,
Because
those are really cool. What page is that
the
on?
way the case is laid out is very visually stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one on the opposite page, we're talking pages 28 and 29. The one on the opposite page, that feathered star, I can picture what that looks like as a quilt from seeing other quilts that look very similar to that. But this one here, the double cases on 28, I can't necessarily say that I've seen much that looks like that using those fabrics together.
Mm-hmm.
Um
They're really striking though. It's
it's
really
very
cool.
striking. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these other ones, like on 30 and 31 here, the Caesar's crown, from seeing a lot of quilts like that, you could see how those clearly could go together if they made a quilt too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I and obviously like having the pillowcase match the quilt like still intact together is obviously pretty rare, because that one that was
Yeah.
shown at Penn's Market there, the Christs,
Chris, yeah.
they only had one pillowcase. And that's not to
Mm-hmm.
say that there wasn't only one, but like uh generally we tend to think about pillowcases in pairs
Correct, yeah.
when we're talking
Unless we're
about
talking about a single bed.
right, but I'm just saying like in general when we think about them, we just kind of think about them in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, just because we're running out of time, let me get back to my screen share here. So that for one, we can see the pictures of the quilt in the frame that Ann's saying I have to take out of the frame, but half of me is like, Ann, you must have pictures. Or maybe she was always dying to see it out of the frame. Okay, so we're back here. So again, I'm sorry for the glare. I did take multiple pictures, but you can see, you are seeing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was gonna say, you're not saying anything, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking, I'm trying to, because it hasn't updated on my end on YouTube yet, so I'm like, am I taking over the the stream as far as the pictures? I'm still struggling to get us both on there when you're
it I was gonna say, since I'm sharing my screen, I don't want to minimize my thing here to look at YouTube.
It's fine. I'm gonna mute myself so you stay up while you're talking.
Oh, it's not showing both of us? Okay. So so you can see this band here. So here's the seam, and then here's this band I was talking about. You can see it's like just a smidge. Steph, you're gonna have to unmute yourself because I'm gonna need you to like look at the comments for me. So you can see this band that I was talking about. This part, so hopefully, I think I got a picture closer, but like you can see right along here, you can see some lining. And that's why I was wondering is if it goes all the way through. That's just me trying to get some of the glare off. The two fabrics are really, really, really similar print, and it's just the color that's really different. I did get a close-up of that. There you go. So yeah, you can see like this one is like just has a little dot, and then just little dots here where this one's all solid. And it's like a red and an orangey. They are as faded as you're really kind of seeing on there.
I know I've seen this in person. At least I'm pretty sure I have, because I think I was around when you bought it, or
nope, you were not. You
I
have
wasn't.
not seen this
I
in
guess
person.
then I've only seen pictures of it. I'm a little surprised that that's background is kind of an orangey. I really truly thought it was like a tan or a like a off-white.
My question would be is was it always an orangey, or did it start out more of that cheddary kind of yellowy? Which I don't know, Anne, if you know the answer to that, but looking at it, and again, the back might tell me something different. I don't know if it's always kind of been an orangey or if we started out.
Yeah, so Anne said the band may be doubled fabric added.
And then you okay. So here, there you go. So here's the, let me see. So yeah, there's that. There's that inside. Looks like there was some partial stitching that went up in there. And then there's a little slip in the back with paper. This side is made in the year 1902. And then the other side of it is out of the estate, or out of Lizzie Nolt's estate, New Holland. What does OE stand for? Do we know what OE stands for?
I'm not sure. I think if Barb's still here, I think she could probably answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, OE Mennonite, and then someone else wrote on it, pillowcase. Anne, is that your handwriting?
Anne has said, I need to see it out of the frame. Did I mention that already?
Anne, okay, you need to see it out of the frame because you never got to see it out of the frame, or like.
And Barb clarified that's old order Mennonite.
You know, that was my first gut instinct, and then I was like, that's OE. So it's not instead of OO, but if that's what that means, then alrighty then. But yeah, and if you've already seen it out of the frame, or has it been in a frame since like 1902? The frame does look decently aged. Okay.
Well, by the time Anne is here for, when we're finished up with the book, then you can have it out of the frame to show her on.
Oh, and like the backing paper is so perfection. It makes me wonder, is this a thing? Like, could I take it to a professional framer and have them like nicely take it apart? Is that a thing?
Possibly. My guess is they'd want the business of putting it back in the frame for you.
Well, I mean, I guess would that, I've never had anything professionally framed. Would that be really
Yeah, it's
expensive?
really all, I don't, I have no idea. It does cost a bit of money to get professional framing done, but I think you can take just like a box cutter and just slice that paper off the back. There's like a way they glue it to the frame. Yeah.
Maybe I'll make you do it.
Oh, I'll punch right through that.
So
So
she
Anne
never.
said, yeah, she never saw it out of the frame. I saw it hanging in the shop, already framed. So she shops at the same place as you do.
So she shop. Well, to be fair, when I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm often shopping with her. So she just didn't happen to be. I was with Dawn and her husband at this particular day. And a little shout out, like Dawn's the one that's like, you need to buy them. So anywho, so moving on here, Arlene. Ooh, wow, these are out of order. I hate how. Okay, yeah, that's really out of order. It's frustrating. So Arlene had shared some pictures of on Facebook that she had bought a pillowcase. What page was it? Was it 23? She bought a pillowcase from Anne. And what, Arlene, what page was it? Well, I guess we're just gonna look at the front. This is the back of it here, close up of the backing. There you go. What page was that?
It's page 43.
43. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So this is obviously like this is this little reading ahead because we're not that far yet. But yeah, this one is Arlene's 9-patch or single iris chain pillowcase pair. Estimated date 1890 to 1910. Maker unknown. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania origin. 18 by 26. Hand and machine stitch. Partial end opening. The back wasn't shown. We have it here. It's a different double blue. Inside open edge has black and white striped fabric facing. And then of course it says collection of the author. So yeah, here are those little nuggets, and then I'll go back to this backing fabric. I love the double blues. I just want to have them all in my life.
Yeah, I love those double blues too. Yeah, these are very pretty.
And then I can zoom in here. I like that red. That red's cute. That red is very cute. These look in nice shape too, like all things considered. Ah, wow. How did these get so out of order? It's so obnoxious. Here's inside. This is the great thing about people still having pieces from books where you can, obviously Anne can't put pictures in of every view of every pillowcase. So then we get to look. Wow, that's quite a loose weave there with some of the frame. Don't forget, stuff, that you're muted if you start saying anything.
No, I know. Arlene says they are definitely in good shape, and Anne said she loved that blue because she remembers these very well.
Yeah, and even the black and white that on the inside here is really pretty.
I like the little figure on the red fabric, that little clover-like thing. That's you're right. That is very cute.
It's very cute. And another picture. So if anyone else, listening, watching, if by any chance you have any that you either bought from Anne or that you have of your own, you're welcome to share them with us if you want to look at them, as a group. Actually, this double blue on the front's really cute too. I just love double blue. But yeah, that red's is really held on to its color good. And
yeah,
then
and that's like would that be considered a turkey red? Because it's that really beautiful, vibrant red, or is turkey red like a little bit more like cherry colored? Like this is a kind of a hot red.
I feel like Barb is probably going to be one of the ones to pop in with that.
So as we're wrapping up here, if I just may refer back to a few things in the book.
Hold on one sec, because Arlene
Oh.
shared two more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, they got jumbled when I was like, it really makes me angry. She posted these and said that she was told they were from California, but now given the reference in here, that I think it was that the Amish does some red work pillowcases. If I'm remembering that correctly, she had said she's gonna have to do some research now to see if any of these names link back to Pennsylvania. And Anne said, wow, so Anne, I guess you haven't seen these before. Gertrude J. Batchelder, Theodore Meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see Myers. I mean, I see some names. I see some names that are kind of similar to that Quigley quilt I have, which is definitely from Pennsylvania.
Like a Wheeler here. Whaley. Oh, Townsend. That's Townsend's. There's a lot of Townsend going on in Massachusetts. I like this, whatever this is. What is that? From one direction, it almost looks like a lily pad.
Yeah, it's almost like a lotus kind of thing. But yeah, those are really pretty embroideries. Those don't look familiar to me. I mean, not like I know all the red work in the world, but those looks kind of different than I've seen things lately. The children especially are really interesting. They're not
Rose Ingalls.
Yeah, the children are, I mean, those aren't Kate Greenaway figures. I guess I've been looking at too many of those lately.
Yeah, and then there's another picture, but because I got jumbled here. This is, I'm assuming, the quilt that goes with it, Arlene. Oh, she also said she thought that too, Steph. Because this quilt has the same edge. So this is 1904. So yeah, I'm guessing this must go with it. Which has, well, there's our lotus flowers.
Yeah, Arlene says on the quilt itself, there are some that might be from the Pennsylvania region. And by the way, Barb confirmed that it looks like a synthetic red dye on those.
I thought maybe, but I figured it was best to oh, that's cute. Look at that. Yeah, Arlene, have you charted this quilt? Because there's so many names. I think this is definitely gonna have to be looked. Wow, I like the printing on this one.
Yeah, there's definitely many hands in there as far as the writing.
Abby Biddleman.
So no charting yet.
Okay.
Arlene's got so much time on her hands, just like
right. Especially for some of these ones too. Like, look at good luck reading this one. This one I could almost be convinced was like Alexander, but like the script is so short and tiny. But
from where I'm sitting, it looks like Plumber, but
but it's so long.
Yeah,
it's like Plumber. So yeah, so those are the little tidbits from tonight's.
Yeah, those are great, Arlene. Thank you for sharing those.
Yes,
I knew that we were gonna eventually get to see the pillowcases you bought from Anne, but this was a neat surprise to see these. And I wonder, if they have connection to PA. Are they, I know I have been recently very surprised by some of the other work that the Amish did. Not all Amish stuff is the standard Amish quilt that you think of. They did. I
wouldn't consider any red work off the top of my head. I'm gonna stop, so get ready to do gallery.
Okay. It should still be right. So as we wrap up, there were just two things I wanted to go back to in the book. So on page 28, you talked about the facing page. And these are just so striking, but I wanted to make the point about this one.
The feathered star.
Yeah. Now that the way that those little points wrap around the back of the pillow, that to me is like that was purposeful. Like they did that on purpose. Or maybe it was a happy accident it worked out that way, but it is so pristine the way it's folded like perfectly. And I'm just like, oh, they meant to do that. And what is possibly being shown here and is definitely shown on the previous pages are the pillar prints.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with pillow print. But when the pillar prints are used on the pillars, I had seen this type of fabric before, but I never really realized that what a pillar print was. And it's these kind of these prints, and there's a whole
actual
history.
prints of pillars.
Yeah, there's a whole history about these kinds of fabrics. And I'm by no means know anything really about these pillar prints, but I just thought it was so interesting. And I guess it's kind of a matter of like when these prints, they wanted to use them like whole cloth when they could. And I suspect that in a lot of times they were draperies, like they make sense as hangings, or, so that you could see that whole pillar. But it kind of seems like, when that went out of style, that's when people cut these things up. And so, you have a time period where these were very sought after, very, in their glory. And then on the next pages, you have where potentially these same kinds of prints have been like, okay, these aren't the style anymore. We're going to yank them off the windows and put them into quilts and stuff.
I mean, in a lot of ways, they remind me of toiles.
Yes, they kind of got that sort of attitude about them. But I think it's like they're, a lot of this stuff is they're French and English, and it's like that's what was going on in these printers at the time. So I just thought that was really interesting that there's she found these examples, so many of them, that incorporated these prints.
I feel like potentially I might have seen these ones on page 26 when I was at the Winter. Because they look familiar, and at first I was like, oh, those look kind of familiar, and then when I was like, oh, Winter, maybe I saw them. I don't know.
Did. Yeah.
By the way, anyone who hasn't been there, like, I was there specifically for a textile exhibit they had that was needlework and sampler stuff. That museum is amazing. Also, Arlene, in relations to charting her quilt, says, I have a friend in our local quilt study group that loves charting. I'm tapping her on Saturday. So that's going to be really exciting. You definitely have to keep us updated and tell her to like come and talk about it with us in the chat here, because that would be really
cool. I would love to, and that's something I've never done. I don't know how it's done. I've never done it. And I have a couple of things where I'm like, I should chart these because they have enough things on them to like, to look at in the future.
Anne says Winter was very good to her about using their cases in her book. That's really nice to hear. It's nice.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I feel like I've heard good things about the Winter Shirt, and also the Shelburne. They're very kind when you reach out to them about, I would like to use this picture, and here's why. And they're like, sure, here's all that you need. And I'm like, wow, that was really easy. I've had here in Baltimore, sometimes you have to push through.
By the way, you didn't make any comment or anything about the mentions in here of Baltimore?
Yeah, there, I mean, she mentioned Maryland because of the proximity.
There's a museum in particular, the Baltimore
County Historical Society. So that's not a museum.
Oh, it's not. They don't have like anything.
They don't have stuff on display.
No. Oh, because I was gonna say, like, they said they have. There's some.
They have things. Oh yeah. The Baltimore County, the Howard County is the county that's below me. They have wonderful things. And let me take that back. I don't know where their stuff is right now.
I was gonna ask if you'd ever seen.
They're not a like, so like the Howard County one is in the visitor center, like the county visitor center. Like that's where they have their
So they
displays.
don't have their own standalone location.
No, the Maryland Center for History and Culture, which is a big museum downtown in the museum district, is the state historical society, and like they're the ones that do all the stuff. And the county historical societies, they do a lot of work together, but they're in the pecking order, they're like way down there. And I don't know that very many of them have like a facility, as much as like they contribute stuff, they pull things out, they'll, you know, but they mostly just house the stuff.
Okay. Because I was gonna be like, hello, Steph, is this down the street from you? Like,
no, but I mean, I know people. You know, it's not a collection that's like, you know, online where you can just go and search it. It's kind of, you have to have some leads, you have to have some threads to pull. So but
here
yeah,
I was hoping like go get more detailed photos of whatever they've got in their collection here for us to look at.
Yeah. So Arlene says Excel spreadsheet is best. Yes, with all those names, I would imagine, yeah. You'd have to
I can't even picture it. Like, I can't even picture it. I have one with a bunch of signatures on it, and I was asked if it was charted. Not near as many signatures as Arlene's has. Not like, if Arlene's has 100, mine is like 8. You know, so, and I'm still like, oh no, I haven't charted it. And it felt daunting in that moment. And then looking at hers, I was like, oh no, apparently I should have had mine done 3 years ago.
Well, at least that one's done in blocks. If you've got something that's not done in blocks, like charting a crazy quilt for stuff, yeah, that's when you actually have to like draw it out and assign numbers and things to it. It's that gets more complicated.
Yeah,
but
I think about it archaeologically as like an assemblage, and I'm just like, you know, if we're just like looking at the names themselves, as in archaeology, you're thinking about how things are relating to other things in proximity, but it's like, do we have to pay attention to that? Or like, you know, Arlene, seriously, like on top of all the other projects, you're right. I'm such a slacker. I should be done with it by now. Clearly, it will be in an exhibit hopefully next year. So if it is, I'll let people know. But yeah, there's so many things to do. Speaking of so many things, Steph and I have to get ourselves prepared. And that's a different quilt, yeah. The first one is a bed quilt. Now you're talking about the pillowcase. So let me just put this on like my lawn. I should be like etching things into stone here as my like long.
Are you regretting inviting everybody and reminding people to come, because everyone's ganging up on Jill and I love it.
Well, I will say it, you know, if I get to the unframing, I will record it. Unless you guys want to try to do that on a live stream. I would just need that would just require help, but I will say that a particular significant other did get me a brand new webcam, like a nicer webcam that attaches to the computer. So like maybe we could use that. What do you guys think? Would you rather it live or would you rather it recorded? I guess
I want it live.
You want it live. She's like, I want to see the blood.
And so stop complaining. And I'm saying, yeah, to get to it.
You know, and I can hear her. I can literally hear her voice say that. She's probably gonna like record it and send it to me in like a Facebook message. So I will bring it to PA next year. I absolutely will. And I'm gonna be in Pennsylvania in October. So, or I could bring it to seminar there, girly. You know, we could talk about it then if you wanted to see it. Maybe I'll make you one frame it.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Who knew pillowcases could be so divisive?
I know, right? Like we can like put up a thing like, watch this fight, pillowcase versus Ann.
Well, with that, I think we've overstayed our welcome. Speaking of shows, if I may plug myself.
Oh, it's about time.
I'm in a show starting on August 1st. So keep your eyes peeled on all of the Instagram, the Facebook, all the things, because there will be a link. It's an online show. So
well, and when you say you have a show, what exactly does that mean? You have quilts in a show?
Yes, I have a piece, and so my work is art quilts. Like I mean, I have made bed quilts, and I do enjoy making like, oh, I'm working on my Mary Wither waxes. I have done it. I will do it. I still do it. But for the most part, most of my work are art quilts, small things. And yes, it's called Conversations in Mad Matters. It's about mental health. And it was like came at just the right time, and I just did my Artist James project, and yeah, it was a good time. So yeah, I will be pestering everybody. Go look at my show.
Yes, we will put reminders of that everywhere. So then again, last minute reminders here is tomorrow is Needlework Nights. If you want to come by for that, we do that at 7 p.m. because we often have a hard time staying to an hour. Who knows? And we're doing advertising thimbles. So at last minute here, if you have things that you want to share, you can share them on the Instagram or the Facebook, or our email is quiltnerding@gmail.com. Next Tuesday, August 6th, we're doing chapters 3 and 4. If you have anything there you want to share, by all means, again, you can send it out to us. It's even can be things that you find, in auctions. We look at stuff from all over the place.
Yeah.
As long as you're not kind of stealing photos from someone.
Yeah, I would say like for the most part, auctions, eBay, most times people are okay. And I mean, we always sort of fall back on the copyright claims. We're doing education here. This is education. But for the most part, I think auctions and eBay, like they don't care. Their pictures are about selling stuff. They're fine with.
Well, and I'm plugging that auction too, but as long as you're not like
Yeah.
taking them off like people's Facebook pages and stuff without their permission, you can share things that you find on places online, because that's where we find a lot of things too. And keep your eye out for books that Stephanie and I are destashing, because running this show takes some funds.
Indeed, it does.
Any other last minute things, Steph?
I think that's it.
Okay. Ann, thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us tonight. It was so fun to have you in the
Absolutely.
chat. And everybody else that came, thank you so much. And Arlene for sharing your photos. That was really fun. And I think that's gonna do it.
Yeah. And as always, we're so grateful for you guys.
We
Like,
are.
yeah. So, well, goodbye, Jill.
Night, Stephanie. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
friends.